messing with some raw dudes, wrestling, talking, raw views, previews, recaps, and interviews. Definition of professional, tell me what you expected though. Facts are checked when information's collected, yo. We body slamming all these wrestling brands, but of course that's the case when A&T's on hand. We going head to head, this ain't a ratings war. Now's your chance to chat with Steven, what you waiting for?
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of RawViews. My name is Steven and today we will be talking Monday Night Raw. And it was a show I really enjoyed. If you're not new to my show, if you've listened to my shows in the past, you probably already know that I really like this Monday Night Raw show, and it's really simple why. It's format. I am a sucker for a really good story-lined output wrestling show. So you start the night with a story, you continue that story throughout the night, and then you close the night with that story whenever it's the WWE Championship or AEW Championship or whatever promotion I'm watching at the time. Whenever it's for that title, I'm hook, line, and sinker. And right now we have our babyface in peril, and you can kind of see it with the opening of the show last night. Drew McIntyre is on Miz TV. The Miz pulls himself from the Elimination Chamber match after McIntyre just goes off and attacks The Miz, and you can start to see a bit of frustration with Drew McIntyre. You can start to see a little bit of extra intensity come out of him. It's being pulled out of him because he has so many people gunning for his title right now, and if you look at it, that is the overarching story of the show is centered around Drew McIntyre and all of the obstacles around him, including those we're not even fully aware of yet. If you look somewhere in the middle of the show, you have Braun Strowman returning looking jacked. I mean, the dude is in... A guy his size shouldn't be in that great of shape, but Braun Strowman returns and says, "Hey, Adam Pearce, I want to be in the Elimination Chamber match." This is later in the night after it's established who would replace Miz. As I mentioned, Miz pulls himself out of the Elimination Chamber, and now we have to put somebody in that spot. All of a sudden, numerous names get mentioned on social media. It ends up being Kofi Kingston, who defeats The Miz, who wanted John Morrison in the match. But I digress. For the first time, we are really starting to see Drew McIntyre and the weight of carrying that championship really fall onto his shoulders as a character. We're really starting to see him be a little uneasy as champion for the first time, and that's not something we've seen a lot of. We've seen a very confident Drew McIntyre with a lot of swagger as champion so far, even in his feuds with Randy Orton, Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins, so on, so even defeating Brock Lesnar and becoming champion. He had a lot of swagger, and now as we're rolling into this WrestleMania, it almost appears that for the first time we're seeing a Drew McIntyre, not that he's not confident, but that he's having to be a little more intense, that he's a little more short fused, that the weight of carrying this championship is a lot for him right now. And that's what I enjoyed. But you could see it from the opening segment. He headbutts Miz, and then throughout the night, we just get even more odds, even the deck stacked more against our champion, because again, you have the Elimination Chamber this Sunday, you have Miz with the briefcase who pulled himself out of the Elimination Chamber, so he'll be healthy at the end of Sunday night, and then also you have Braun Strowman returning, and all of a sudden it feels like everybody's just gunning for the champion, and that is what I really like to see. I love to see this character arc for Drew McIntyre because he's having to grow as a character, and not only that, but you're making this championship the center of so many different stories. And oh, by the way, one of the people inside the Elimination Chamber, his best friend who's just recently turned on him and now has attacked him at the end of the night at the end of the gauntlet match. Sheamus was the last person to enter the gauntlet match. He runs down, attacks McIntyre from behind to start the match, gets the pin over McIntyre. So on top of all this other stuff, his best friend, who's newly turned on him, will be the last entrant into the Elimination Chamber match. That is really good storytelling for a night. in my opinion. Maybe you hated it, and that's completely fine. You can have that opinion. If you hated, you know what? Not if you hated her. If you hated or loved the show, put it down below, because I feel like you either loved last night's show or you hated last night's show. I don't think there's a lot in the middle. Because my guess is, if you're like me, if you like a lot of storytelling in your shows, then you love this show, because this show also had really great in-ring action. That gauntlet match is probably in my top 5 matches of the year so far. A lot of people listening to this might not know, but I have been tracking my top 5 of 2021 so that when we get to the end of the year, I hopefully can truly give you what I thought the match of the year was. But last night, Drew McIntyre having to grow as a character, as the champion, was really entertaining for me to watch. Let me go ahead and let me speak. I'm going to be giving my predictions. I'm going to drop a prediction show, I believe, Friday. So programming note, prediction show Friday. Thursday will be my AEW NXT recap. And then tomorrow I have something really, really special for you guys. I'm going to tell you at the end of this show what that is for tomorrow. I think you're really going to enjoy it. But let's jump back over to Raw. Again, I'm not sure where they're going to go right here because they have so many different options. We've been told and we've said for so long that WWE has a problem with being very predictable when it comes to WrestleMania season, and we want more unpredictability. Well, you have 3 legitimate feuds for Drew McIntyre going into WrestleMania just on face value. So that's not even talking about a returning Brock, a surprising John Cena, or anybody else like that. That is just The Miz with the briefcase, Sheamus' best friend that just turned on him, and then Braun Strowman, the other guy who won the major championship last year at WrestleMania by defeating Goldberg. I mean, it's awesome because we have options, and I think that, I think that with Drew, my guess is he is the champion moving in that direction. So, who would you like to see? Let me know on Twitter. Let me know down below in the comment section. Who do you want to see face Drew? I think it's going to be Braun. Braun is the name I keep coming back to. If you watch my Twitter since December, Braun is the name I come back to constantly. After he went down with injury, he's now back in tremendous shape. WWE officials love Braun. It's a big guy Drew can get a win over at WrestleMania. I think it's Braun. That's my prediction as of today, February 16th, but I reserve the right to pull my prediction and change it to something else. Let's talk about something else that happened in that gauntlet match last night. A 5-star gauntlet match, by the way. That's a 5-star match. Whenever I rate matches, it's generally, was I entertained? Was I not entertained? Was this over and above entertainment? Last night's gauntlet match was, because you also got more story within that match. What other story did you get? Randy Orton loses the match via the count out because Alexa Bliss takes over the Thunderdome. Really, really cool stuff. I think more people like that kind of creepy weird than the other stuff you've been seeing from Alexa Bliss. My guess is I didn't see as much hate for the Alexa Bliss stuff last night, and I think it's because you can actually understand what's happening. It's not over and above supernatural. Instead, it's her taking over a bunch of screens in the Thunderdome, which any, really good hacker could do, I guess. I think you can do some really cool things with The Fiend and Randy Orton this Sunday. I'll dive more into that on Friday's show, the prediction show. Also, though, I think there's another story that might be told in this Elimination Chamber match, and that's Kofi and Mustafa Ali, because you remember, Kofi Mania really kicked off with the spot in the Elimination Chamber that was taken from Mustafa Ali, which led to Kofi finally winning the WWE Championship from Daniel Bryan. I think we probably revisit that here, and that's awesome. We have 3 different storylines inside this chamber, and then also we have AJ Styles in the match. I really think this match is going to be great. I think we have an opportunity to see some really cool things surrounding this match as a whole on Sunday. So what else happened on the show last night? Lacey Evans announced she was pregnant, and Ric Flair announced, "Call me daddy." This is a storyline that is really hit or miss for a lot of people. It's really funny though, because this is Attitude Era stuff, like 101. Last night's show was actually really Attitude Era if you think about it. Put your babyface champion in peril, have a lot of underneath storylines, showcase a dominant champion just before the pay-per-view. I mean, last night's show was kind of straight out of my childhood. Whether we want to admit that or not, I don't know, but it really was. I don't know what this means now for the women's division on Raw, because it really felt like we were setting up Lacey Evans and Charlotte, which would then open the door for Asuka to take on somebody else, maybe for the championship. And now I don't know what they do. I genuinely don't know what you do with this roster, because so much of it hinged on this Charlotte Lacey storyline. Maybe you now slide Ripley over to Raw, whereas before I think she was supposed to, or is supposed to, feud with Bayley going into WrestleMania. I think that maybe you now slide her over. You could have her take on Asuka, and maybe you could then have Peyton Royce and Charlotte. You could have Ripley, Charlotte, Asuka as a feud. You could pull Shayna away from the women's tag title and move her over to Asuka, which I think a lot of people would enjoy, because there's a lot of story there with the NXT reigns that both of them had. But then the question is, what do you do with Charlotte? Because whether you like it or not, or I like it or not, Charlotte is going to be featured on WrestleMania. That's a fact. It is a given. It is going to happen. So, if you're trying to construct a card that you actually think is going to happen, one of the first things you need to ask yourself when you're talking about the women's division is, what do you do with Charlotte? Because she's going to be featured heavily on the show. And I don't know, unless they go Royce Charlotte or they start putting Charlotte in the title picture. I think those are the only two clear options right now. It's reported that Lacey's going to stay on television for at least a bit. I would think that would be to torment Charlotte, which does make sense for maybe a Peyton Royce Charlotte feud. I'm just not sure Peyton's been built up enough to take on Charlotte, especially at WrestleMania. Let me know what you think. I don't know where they go, like I said, unless they just move Charlotte to the title picture against Asuka, which would be a great match for Asuka, but it's going to make a lot of people nervous that don't want to see Charlotte as champion again, especially at the expense of Asuka. I think the right call would be to put the title on Charlotte anyway, though. Moving on, though, last night, Bobby Lashley once again wreaked havoc. Commentary did mention a minor nugget, and we never did see a promo picture for the U.S. title match this Sunday. They mentioned Keith Lee's health, and they were unsure if he would. They were unsure about his health and how it might affect Sunday. Which I now wonder if they're just going to pivot back to it being Riddle versus Lashley. Which I wouldn't hate, by the way, but Lashley has looked dominant over the past year. He's been one of the best booked guys on the roster, and when I look at this potential match, well, let's first touch on the match. It was Riddle and the Lucha House Bros. Before the match, Riddle goes through. I love his promos. I know a lot of people don't. I do. Again, it's very Attitude Era, but he stallions and bros all the presidents of the past. He and Lucha House Party pick up the win over the Hurt Business. It does look like MVP might have tweaked his knee. Hopefully he's okay. Once I have news on that, I'll be posting that on WrestlingNewsWorld.com, which you can find all my writings at WrestlingNewsWorld.com. But after the match, Lashley locks Riddle into the Hurt Lock and just leaves him laying. I love the intensity from Lashley right now. I've enjoyed all the interactions between Riddle and Lashley. I think when the two of them get together, it is hard-hitting, it is physical, it is intense, and I love it. And I can't wait to see them on Sunday. I don't know where you go, though. I felt like if you had Lee in the match, you were probably going to put the title on one of the baby faces, or at least have one of these two baby faces feud with Lashley. if the goal is still to get to the title to Lee, you probably have Lashley win, maybe in a dirty way, and then build towards Lashley versus Lee at WrestleMania. Otherwise, the whole rest of the show, the women's tag titles, Kai and Gonzalez won. If you didn't listen to my TakeOver recap show, you should do so. It's probably the video underneath this video. But Dakota Kai wins. It looks like we're setting up for Lana and Naomi taking on Shayna and Nia. Shayna did get a win over Lana to last night, I guess I should say. Shayna's been protected in almost every one of her matches. Whenever she has a single match, she taps out her opponent. So it is clear they see a lot of value in Shayna. And again, I guess if I'm thinking, you could move these titles off of Shayna and Nia. You could have Shayna then go for the title. Maybe you have Shayna and Nia both go for the titles. So maybe you end up with a Asuka, Shayna, Nia match at WrestleMania, which I wouldn't hate, by the way. I know a lot of people are gonna poo-poo that because Nia's involved in the match, but you know, she's kind of the whole division right now. Anyway, back to it. You could then put the tag titles on Lana and Naomi and have them take on Kai and Gonzalez. I think, you know, as I've talked my way through this, you guys are just getting my raw views on everything. I have no script here, so again, my raw view on everything. I think that that's what I would do. And then you could still move Ripley over to Monday Night Raw. But then, you know, the question is, do you Bayley and Charlotte are both people you're going to need dance partners for. I feel like Ripley's that person in between. Who would you rather see Rhea Ripley face at WrestleMania? Bayley or Charlotte? You have the redemption story versus Charlotte, or you have a brand new story with a red hot heel Bayley. Let me know in the comments section below. And that's about it for Monday Night Raw. I thought the show was a very cohesive show. I thought it was an easy to watch show. My guess is they do pretty well in the ratings tonight. They have finished, of the 6 weeks they've been on Monday nights in 2021, they have been the number one show in the key demo 4 of those 6 times. The only 2 times they haven't was the college football finals and an NBA game featuring LeBron James. But that's it. So, as for tomorrow, again, programming notes. Today, of course, will be my Raw recap, just normal Tuesdays. Tomorrow, I will be chronicling the Dungeon of Doom. Yes, I'm going to chronicle the entire history of the Dungeon of Doom. You won't want to miss that. A lot of work went into it. It's a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy it. Thursday will be my AEW NXT recap show. Friday will be my prediction show for Elimination Chamber. So again, if you haven't yet, hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about me. A positive influence here on the wrestling podcast, wrestling YouTube streets. I'm here to incite some logical thinking and some positivity in a place where we are a very toxic fan base. So again, I appreciate your listen. Hit the thumbs up, drop a comment. If you drop a comment below, I'm going to interact with you just like I do on my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at @view_raw. If you haven't yet, I engage with almost everybody all day. Do the same for YouTube. Drop a comment below and just hit the subscribe button and let people know, hey, there's a new guy on the podcast streets, on the YouTube streets that thinks logically and he's positive. Until tomorrow, everybody, be awesome.